Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first meeting of the Election Compliance Audit Committee for this term of council. I will ask first if there are any declarations of interest by the members. I see we have a quorum of members. All our members are present. No declarations of interest being filed. We'll now proceed with some housekeeping items. The three housekeeping items on the agenda are the election of the committee's chair and vice chair, receiving the committee's terms of reference, and thirdly, approving our rules of procedure. On the first item,
Mr. Chair, I would like to propose that Douglas Wallace be appointed as chair and Carmela Vidar as his vice chair for the 2018-2022 term of council.
Thank you. Are there any further?
I second.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? All in favor? Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Member O'Callaghan.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member.
And Madam Vice Chair.
I'll be honored to act as your chair for this term. Now, the next item is the approval of the terms of reference that are attached, I believe, to the agenda as document 1, I think.
Received.
Are these received? Thank you. And the third is approval of the rules of procedure. These rules received and approved.
Received.
Carried?
Carried.
Thank you. Now, that completes the housekeeping matters. The rules provide that an opening statement shall be made by the chair at the opening of the hearing at which an application, one or more applications are to be considered. And I do so now. Before consideration, I'd like to clarify the committee's purpose here today. The committee's purpose is a pre-investigative one. We act in common parlance perhaps as a gatekeeper to look at applications, not to applications made for an audit of a candidate's, in this case of a candidate's financial statements. We don't decide on whether there has been any breach of a statute, simply act as a pre-investigative body to determine whether there are reasonable grounds to forward to believe that there may have been a breach of the financial provisions, requirements in the Municipal Election Act, that are founded on credible evidence, and that there's something there, perhaps in lay terms, that an auditor, if he knew about it, would think, yes, this requires further investigation, looking into. We're going to, and with that in mind, it's important to note that we don't make any decision on whether there has been a breach of the Act, or even whether, or any consequences. We just decide whether there's enough that it should be forwarded to an auditor for his investigation, and then we appoint an auditor who refers the matter back to us. At that time, we decide what to do with the auditor's report. If we find that reject the application, the matter goes no further. The committee is not a court and is not a quasi-judicial tribunal. I should mention, I think, that in the legislation and the rules that we've just approved, there is one important change in the legislation, and that is that the committee will give its reasons for any decision on an application that comes before it, or indeed there's other provisions in the Act with respect to reports coming to the committee from the city clerk. We happen to have on the agenda 2 applications today for an audit, and we'll deal with them. But the new thing in the rules and the legislation is that in dealing with those applications, we'll give a decision, and the decision will contain brief written reasons for our decision. That is a new provision in the Act, and will necessitate, I think, possible deliberations in private, which are expressly authorized by the Act. When we didn't have to give any written decisions, quite frankly, all members of the committee or different members of the committee may have had different reasons for their decisions. Now, the legislation requires the committee to give its decision and its reasoning. Therefore, the need for occasionally, if meeting in private to decide what the reasons are motivating each individual member of the committee. And if we agree on the reasons, they can be written out at that time. If the committee does deliberate in private, its decision will be reported, a motion will be made in the open following the deliberations in private, so that our reasons are public and will be voted on in public. We'll have to see, as I say, that's a new provision, and we'll have to see how that works out in practice. But I'm confident with the members that we have on the committee representing various areas of expertise and experience, we're going to be able to make these decisions properly. Now, a little bit about our rules, a little bit more about the rules and the procedure we'll be following. The normal course is for the applicant his application to be received by the committee and considered by the committee. The applicant may speak to his application if he so wishes. There will be no cross-examination, but he may speak in favor and supporting his application. The committee members may, when he completes his oral presentation or we read it, they may wish to, any member of the committee may wish to ask questions for clarification to the applicant. Then the candidate is afforded an opportunity as well to speak to why the application should not be granted, and will as well be subject to any questions that the committee members have. If there are additional speakers or people supporting the application, they may then be heard, followed by anything additional that the candidate may wish to bring forward, or others representing the candidate. When all the questions have been asked and we've heard what both parties have to say, the applicant and the candidate, members each will be allowed an opportunity to speak to the motion and ask questions of staff if they have any questions, and we'll decide at that point whether we wish to have deliberations or need to have deliberations in private, or we can, with a vote to be followed in public. Having said this, we may now proceed with the first application. And the first application is an application by Mr. I'm remiss, I should have mentioned, if you wish to speak to a matter on the committee's agenda, you should give your name to the city staff present. Thank you. And the first application we have before us, number 4 on the agenda, is an application by Mr. Brian Bruce Faulkner. Mr. Faulkner, are you present today? Good morning, sir. Would you like to speak to your application? Does the committee wish to receive the application? Right. It's before us. Does anybody, we can read the application. Does anybody wish to speak, oppose the application? Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Good morning.
My name is Greg Meads, M-E-E-D-S. I'm a lawyer. I've been retained by candidate DeRuse with respect to this matter. As a preliminary statement, I'm thinking back to the last time I appeared before this committee in 2011, and I don't recall if it occurred, maybe I just forgot, but I found your opening comments to be very helpful in terms of the standard and the test and what your role is today. Unless there's any other questions, I'll just move into my 5 minutes. Is that good, Mr. Chair? Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, as you indicated, the threshold for the committee here today is to determine whether there are reasonable grounds to believe that the candidate has contravened a provision of the Act. As many of you know, or all of you know, Canadian courts have established that that reasonable grounds test means a bona fide belief in a serious possibility based on credible evidence. It is my submission that no such serious possibility based on credible evidence exists, and as such, there's no basis for the committee to grant the application for an audit. I'm going to turn to the 7 issues addressed by the applicant. And as I do, I'll be referring specifically to invoices which are in the package of materials that has been distributed to the members of the committee this morning. So I would ask if you have that package. That's it. The first issue raised is with regards to the website cost. That website development and hosting cost $847.50. That invoice is the first invoice in that package that you have for website design and development, site hosting, and a candidate profile picture totaling $847.50. That cost was included in the advertising component of the Form 4. The second item in the application is with regards to the annual Fall High Tea. This was not a campaign event. Candidate DeRuse received written clearance from the City Clerk's office to hold this annual event. The email from Mr. O'Connor to candidate DeRuse's campaign is provided. That's at the next page of the package. You will see an email from Rick O'Connor in the first paragraph. I hereby approve a general exemption to the blackout period provision of the city's election-related resources policy such that this annual community event may proceed on Thursday, October 4th, 2018. I can read further down on the page where greater explanation is provided, but I don't want to use up too much of my time. The email is clear. It was not a campaign event. The third issue raised is with respect to expenses related to the Metcalfe Fair. All of those expenses were properly recorded under advertising or meeting hosted on Form 4. Those expenses include, and turning to the next page of the document, an invoice for rental space of the booth at the fair payable to the Metcalfe Agricultural Society for $200. The next page, $136.80 for popcorn to Papa Popcorn. The next page, $79.10 payable to J&J Sales Food Broker for Papa Jack bulk popcorn. And then finally, with regards to the canopy tent, there's an invoice from CSM Printing Supplies. It includes a number of items. The fourth on the list reads canopy 8x8. $250. So members of the committee, all of those expenses are properly accounted for and are included in the audited statement. Yes. There's one item, there's 4 items, there's a total of
Right.
$2,260, but there's one item for the canopy, an 8x8 canopy, $250.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
With respect to the T-shirts that were observed, candidate DeRuse ordered and sold T-shirts as part of his campaign launch fundraising activity held on July 29th, 2018. $508.50 was paid to Graphic Tree, and $593.25 was paid to Barhaven Source for Sports for the production of these fundraising T-shirts. Those invoices are found at the next 2 pages. Those amounts are included in Part 4, Schedule 2 of Form 4. Turning to issue number 4 with regards to the promotional brochure and the mailing cost. The next page of the invoices is an invoice payable to Andrea Gent. You'll see at the bottom of that page. This is for design and services rendered. This is the brochure, total of $282.30. So that was the production of the brochure. And then turning to the next several pages are the Canada Post invoices for the mailing.
I've just been advised that our 5-minute per speaker time limit has expired, but with the committee's consent, I think we should allow you to continue. So the committee's will that the time be extended.
Thank you. I can't be any more brief with addressing each one of them.
That's fine. I was going to, if anything, ask you to slow down, not speed up.
I know. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those Canada Post invoices are properly recorded. Number 5, issue number 5 relates to expenses attributable to the installation of signs at Metcalfe Park on the day of the Metcalfe Community Association Fund Day. Councillor Deroux, or candidate Deroux, had distributed all of his campaign signs weeks before this event. They had all been posted. He had no more to post at that time, so if someone relocated signs on their own to a specific event, he has no control over that. Obviously, there's no obligation to record an expense associated with someone relocating a sign on their own. And the $1,000 expense attributable to the sign removal, well, that was necessary given the short 48-hour period which a candidate's required to remove all signs. He had to pay people to make sure that he complied with that. So that's why there's an expense attributable to sign removal. Number 6, regarding the alleged absence of a value attributable to signs reused in the previous election, there were no signs from the previous election used. Now, very briefly, I know that the applicant has submitted a photograph which purports to be, I'm guessing, because we've not heard from the applicant, signs from the previous election. All candidate Deroux can say is that he destroyed all of the signs from his previous election that he had access to when they were removed after the previous election, and if 1 or 2 of them managed to remain in the hands of individuals and they put them up on their own, he can't control that. And I would submit to you that across the City of Ottawa, I would venture to guess that 1 or 2 signs from any previously successful candidate might have been found to have been erected. It's not the candidate's obligation to make sure that that wasn't done. Certainly, if he had observed any, he would have removed them. And finally, with regards to the requirement to account for gas used in his car to travel to campaign events, that's simply an absurd suggestion, Mr. Chair. There's no duty to account for the few dollars of gas to attend an event, just as there's no requirement to attribute a value to the use of his own car and the insurance for that car for him to get to the event, for example. In summary, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, the candidate is properly accounted for all expenses incurred in his campaign. His expenses fell nearly $3,000 below the authorized campaign expense limit, and this committee should put an end to this matter today. Thank you very much. Candidate Deroux is here if there are any questions specific to the candidate, which I'm not able to answer. And I'm sorry for speaking so quickly, but there were 7 issues, so.
Just one small point of clarification. I didn't, at the pace you were going, get a chance to read everything. The annual tea thing, as I understand it, was not a candidate's event. It was an annual event that the candidate is involved with year after year after year, and that the candidate explicitly discussed this matter in advance with the city clerk to ensure there was no conflict.
That is precisely correct.
Thank you kindly.
Okay, can I speak? Okay, Mr. Darus, you said that you did not use any signs from your previous election campaign. Do you use any other like office equipments from previous election in the 2014 election? Because I have your financial statement with me. Under the expenses, inventory from previous campaign used in this campaign is 0 amount. I just make sure, do you use any other than signs from previous campaign?
No.
Okay.
Just to clarify, when after the election was over, I knew that we're going to change our logo and our marketing because now we're going for re-election instead of vote. We destroyed everything we had on signs. We sent them to the proper recycle, and those signs that if someone has one or two, like Mr. Meats said, that people put them on their own, but that's all what we have.
So all the signs, equipments used for 2018 election were brand new, also purchased new?
Yes, and they're all counted in. They're all counted into.
Okay. I have another question. Under your expense for phones or internet expenses incurred until voting day is 0 amount. Do you use any communication phones, internet, incurred any expenses for this campaign?
Just our personal phones. There is no line item for using our phone.
So how are you going to communicate with your volunteers, supporters during the campaign period?
We did have a when we did our campaign. If you look at the bill number 1, when we set up our website, we also had within those expenses we had we bought voice over IP, which is its free app that you can get on the phone, and that's how we were communicating into our campaign 521 number, and it was forwarded always to my house.
Okay. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
With the technology, it's always cheaper because what happened is we had the line and then you forward it to the home, and then the home phone we answer on it. It's my home line.
No, everything's been answered. Thank you.
Any comments by members? Member Bergeron? Madam Vice Chair? Member O'Callaghan?
Just this, I really don't think that we need to go in private to discuss this matter. I feel that we could, at this stage, make a motion and deal with the matter.
Mm-hmm. Member Wan.
Yeah, I agree. There's no need for private deliberation for this matter.
And all right, then is it the committee's wish that we make a decision here without the necessity of going in private for deliberations? I'm sorry? No, we don't.
I thought, Member O'Callaghan, that we were going to go in private, properly craft our decision, and then come back.
I accept your wisdom.
Okay? Thank you.
Accept.
If it's the committee's will, then we will recess briefly in private to deliberate and return here, I would think within 15 minutes, half an hour maximum. With this in mind, the committee is adjourned for in-private deliberations and will reconvene shortly. Thank you.